Welcome, Holy Spirit. Go and flow. I've got an apple on my desk right now. You may wonder why I have an apple. I'm hungry. No, I'm just teasing. I have an apple on my desk because God said put it there. The reason he said put it there, if God said put it there, there's a reason, is because of Zechariah 2:8 in the Supernatural Bible. He who touches you, or Israel, touches the apple of God's eye. And if you really study this in the Hebrew, what he's saying is he that touches Israel touches the pupil of God's eye, the most sensitive part of God. Do you know what God is saying? That the dividing line, and this is what I absolutely believe, the dividing line between a phony baloney believer that's stuck in American religion versus a true believer that has experiential knowledge of God, I'll give you a litmus test. Israel. Why do you think these college kids are going slightly berserk over Israel? Why do you think so many politicians are going slightly berserk over Israel? Why do you think the world is focusing on a nation that's about the size of Rhode Island? The whole world is focused there because God intends it. This is his litmus test. And you may find out some things today that will really affect what you think about Israel. We're going to go into amazing insight into potentially World War III. My guest, Erick Stakelbeck, was recently at the White House for an off-record private briefing with senior Israeli leaders. But before we discuss the off-record private briefing and what a spokesman from Iran described as a president from Iran describes this as a supernatural war. It's amazing how correct they are. It is a supernatural war. What's with Israel sending missiles to Damascus? My guest, Erick Stakelbeck, why are missiles going there?
Well, look, Sid, number one, great to be with you. And number two, the new regime in Syria. Remember, Bashar al-Assad, the longtime leader of Syria, overthrown back in December 2024. Now we've got this new regime, Sid, and they are, the leader at least, is a former al-Qaeda leader. That gives you an idea of where they're coming from. Over the past few days, they've made moves, has this new Syrian government, to come against the Druze population in Syria. Now, that's right along the Syria-Israel border. Israel has a large population of the Druze. They're a religious minority, but Israel has a large Druze population. So does Syria. So Israel has been intervening in Syria for two reasons. Number one, to protect the Druze there who are being attacked by these jihadis. And number two, to send a message to this new Syrian government, which again has all sorts of al-Qaeda links and terrorist links. Israel is saying, do not get too close to our border. If you do, there will be hell to pay. Israel, Sid, learn the lessons of October 7th. They will never be taken surprise again on their borders like they were on that day.
You had a meeting at the White House, and you also had a very private, confidential type of meeting afterwards. Tell me about the meetings, and let's find out what you learned.
Yeah, it was at the Blair House, actually, the White House guest house right next door. But this senior Israeli official, he said, look, identify me as a senior Israeli official, very close to the top echelon of the Israeli government, gave a great briefing for a group of journalists, small, intimate gathering, Sid, as you said. A few big takeaways for me. Number one, I would say the 12-day war that we just saw last month between Israel and Iran, you could call it the end of the beginning. Prime Minister Netanyahu was meeting with President Trump last week at the White House, and the main topic of discussion was, what now? Okay, Iran's nuclear weapons program has been destroyed, their ballistic missile program, there's been a serious dent made there, and also their air defenses are now non-existent. That's great. The Iranian regime is weakened, and yet, Sid, they don't seem to have learned their lesson, judging by the rhetoric coming out of Tehran over the past few weeks. And the concern is that they will try to restart their nuclear program and also revamp that ballistic missile program. So Trump and Bibi, they're saying, okay, we need to be prepared. And Sid, I believe you haven't seen the last of Israeli strikes against Iran. Because right now, again, Israel has free reign over the skies of Iran. They have destroyed Iran's air defenses. And at the first sign of any Iranian movement to, again, rebuild a nuclear program or other kinds of advanced weaponry, Israel is going to strike. You will see a zero-tolerance policy from Israel. And the good news is President Trump has the same stance when it comes to the Iranian regime. So that was a big takeaway, number one, from this briefing. Number two, here's an interesting one, Sid. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, I had a chance to ask about their relationship, and this official said, look, it is warm. It's a warm relationship. There's no daylight between the Prime Minister and President Trump when it comes to all of these big picture issues, Iran chief among them. They have a great relationship. And I personally, Sid, have compared this relationship to a pair of Winston Churchills coming together in the modern day. Look, Churchill saw the gathering storm of Nazi Germany, and he did what needed to be done. Both Trump and Bibi have been talking about the threat, the gathering storm of a nuclear Iran for years. When the time came, they did what needed to be done. Despite the world howling and gnashing its teeth, Trump and Bibi, working together, did the right thing. It's an historic partnership, I believe, and there's much more to come.
I see it as a God historic partnership. I see them as closer than brothers. I see them as good friends. And I can see God's hand on the two of them coming together at this moment. They're two of my favorite people, I might add. And now they're friends. Devil, watch out. Now, Iran warns of supernatural forces. And we might even call it Iran, the supernatural, excuse me, and the occult. Tell us about that.
Sid, this is fascinating because this Iranian official who talked about this was actually onto something, but he was coming at it from the completely wrong direction. Here's what he said. A former top Iranian official who's very involved with the regime still said earlier this week that during that 12-day war last month, that resounding victory by Israel, that Israel used, quote, supernatural and occult forces, basically demonic forces in that war against Iran. And I have to laugh, Sid, because number one, it's the Iranian regime that is demonic and wicked and the world's number one state sponsor of terrorism and quite literally doing the devil's work. But number two, yes, Israel did have supernatural forces working on its behalf during that war. It's the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who went ahead of Israel's leaders, who went ahead of the IDF and helped Israel to secure this miraculous victory. So very interesting. This Iranian official, it's interesting to me, Sid, that he knew there was something more to this beyond just geopolitics and a military confrontation. It's a spiritual battle, no doubt, but Iran is on the wrong side of it, Iran's leadership, and the God of Israel is on the side of Israel. So even the Iranian regime perhaps is starting to see, hey, maybe there's something more to this. When you come against it, as you said at the top, the apple of God's eye, it may not end well for you.
Well, I'm holding that apple right now. And, you know, the Living Bible says, he that touches Israel pokes their finger in God's eye. How stupid can you get? One official reported that Israel may attack Iran again soon. You say,
Well, it's a great possibility because there is a window here, Sid. You know, look, Iran, as we were discussing a minute ago, they're going to rearm eventually, or they're going to at least try to rearm and rebuild those air defense systems in particular. Now, look, they may look for Russian help or help from China to help rebuild those air defense systems. And Israel is saying, okay, if there's still some mopping up, so to speak, that we need to do inside Iran, some sensitive, important, dangerous targets that need to be hit, better to do it now while Iran is still on its heels and still licking its wounds from the 12-day war and still does not have those air defenses. So this is a window here that Israel feels like it can really tighten the grip even more than it did during the 12-day war and hurt the Iranian regime and weaken them even more. So I would not be shocked this summer, it's mid-July now, to see some more activity. And there have already been reports over the past few days, Sid, of mysterious explosions inside Iran at sensitive government and military type targets involving certain individuals in the Iranian regime. So I don't think we've seen the last of what Israel is going to do vis-a-vis that regime, and they have the full support of President Trump.
Now, I do read in the Bible prophetically that there will come a time when Iran is going to get what it's due. However, I've always felt that's way out there. But just looking at what's happening in the world, it could be closer than we think.
It could. Two things here, Sid. Number one, people need to remember, prophetically as well, that Iran is a Bible land. People might say, what are you talking about? It's Islamic, the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, and yet modern-day Iran, that's ancient Persia from our Bibles. Mordecai, Esther, Cyrus, Darius. It's a Bible land, and guess what? Amid all the terror and mayhem in Iran and that wicked regime, you have to separate the regime from the Iranian people. The world's fastest-growing church right now is in Iran. So it's remarkable,
I'll tell you what,
despite all the persecution.
Eric, you have got to repeat that statement. I don't think that many people realize that in the midst of the tyranny of their leadership, there's a move of God in Iran, and you just said the fastest growing church. The fastest growing church. I mean, is that only God could be doing that?
Only God. That's a fact, Sid. That is a fact. It's the world's fastest growing church. You can't stop the gospel. Bottom line, many have tried. No one has succeeded, including Iran's leaders. There's relentless persecution of followers of Yeshua, Jesus, in Iran. It's a largely underground church, but young Iranians are coming to Christ. So, folks, be encouraged. We talk about all the terror in Iran and the war and rumors of war there, but God is moving. He is not done with that land. Prophetically, Sid, and you mentioned it, look, I think ultimately there will be judgment on that wicked regime. I think of the war of Gog and Magog that the prophet Ezekiel talks about, chapter 38 and 39 of the book of Ezekiel. It seems that Iran will come against Israel in what Ezekiel calls the latter days. But in the meantime, I think God also still has a great plan for the people of that nation, although eventually, and I think that regime right now, Sid, is in the midst of judgment. Look, they've been weakened, embarrassed. Their terror proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah have also been smashed. So this regime is at a low point, no doubt. So they, I believe, are in the midst of that judgment.
So why, in your opinion, was it important that Israel strike when it did?
Yeah, this senior Israeli official that I met with last week said that we're talking about made very clear that Iran was sprinting for the bomb. Two big events that really motivated Iran to ramp up their efforts to become a nuclear power. Number one, when Israel essentially destroyed Hezbollah back in October, November. Now, Hezbollah, based in Lebanon, that's Iran's #1 proxy, supporting, funding, arming this vicious terror group at Israel's doorstep. Israel basically destroyed Hezbollah and eliminated the leader of Hezbollah, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. All of a sudden, Iran's leader said, uh-oh, we may be next. And then Assad fell in Syria in December. That scared Iran's leaders even more. And Sid, here's what they said. The only guarantee of us hanging on to power is if we become a nuclear weapons power. Then no one will touch us. It's the North Korea model. For years, we heard about potential regime change in North Korea. Then Kim Jong-un, the madman in Pyongyang, developed nuclear weapons. He's got probably a few dozen now. You don't hear much anymore about regime change in North Korea. He's got the ultimate deterrent. He's a nuclear power. Iran was following that model. They said, look, if we get the bomb, no one can touch us. But Israel was onto it. Israel has incredible intelligence on the ground inside Iran, and they were just monitoring what Iran was doing. And this senior official said about 6 months ago, Israel's leadership made the decision, okay, we're going to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. We have no choice because they're on the verge of breaking down. And we love the United States to join us in this, but even if they don't, we're still going to do it. Thankfully, the U.S. did come alongside Israel, but this was 0 hours, Sid. The Iranian regime was there. And look, we were going to turn on our TVs, turn on It's Supernatural one day and see one of two things. Number one, hey, Iran has just successfully tested a nuclear weapon. Or number two, Israeli fighter jets are in the skies right now bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. I'm happy to report that it was the latter, and that nuclear program has now been destroyed. But man, they were close.
Well, on the spiritual side, Islam believes the world will be destroyed by Islam with fire. And they also believe the only assurance of getting to heaven is to die as a martyr. What a religion.
Yeah.
And so it's really, from their viewpoint, a holy war that is going on right now. What did Israel's defense minister say at graduation ceremony of Israel's Air Force pilots?
Yeah. Israel Katz said, look, we're going to do what we need to do. This was last week at that Air Force ceremony. We're going to finish the job in Iran. We'll do what we need to do because, Sid, as you said, this is a fanatical Islamic jihadist regime. And the first rule of war, Sun Tzu, know your enemy. Okay, here's what the enemy, Iran's regime, not the Iranian people, the regime, here's what they believe. That they can usher in the return of the Islamic Messiah. And it can only come, Sid, as you said, in a time of great global upheaval and chaos. Well, if Iran starts wars and starts nuking people, of course, you'll have global chaos. And then the armies of Islam will ride to victory. They'll usher in the return of the Islamic version of the Messiah with Iran leading the way. It sounds crazy, but they really, truly believe this. They are true believers in this apocalyptic eschatology and ideology. And the scary thing is, Sid, they're shaping policy around it. So to say that Israel dodged a bullet here, and the world, by extension, dodged a bullet to see those nuclear weapons sites in Iran destroyed, that's an understatement. Once again, Israel did the world a favor, but once again, the world, instead of thanking Israel, is condemning Israel.
Do you have any insight? We know what the leadership of Iran believes. This is what we've been talking about. Do you have any insight as to what the average Iranian people believe? I think there's a disconnect between the two groups.
Major disconnect, and this is a key point. There are droves of Iranians who detest this regime, who loathe this regime. Look, they've been the main victims of the Ayatollahs for the past 46 years, living under their jackboot. The Iranian Ayatollahs said they're modern-day Nazis, and this is a death cult. It's an apocalyptic, genocidal death cult. And large numbers of the Iranian people reject that. They just want to live their lives. And remember, some 70% of the Iranian population is under the age of 30. This is a young, restless nation, the population. Look, there is still a sizable portion who support the regime and have that radical Islamic ideology. But, Sid, overall, I would say the anti-regime forces outnumber pretty considerably people who are still loyal to this regime. I think the big thing for the Iranian opposition is, will a clear leader emerge inside Iran? We have opposition figures here in the U.S. and other places around the world who are Iranian, who oppose the regime, who are symbols of that opposition. But we've yet to see a galvanizing figure emerge in Iran. Yet, think of Lech Walesa, Sid, during the Cold War in Poland, the Solidarity movement helped bring down the Soviet Empire. Someone like that, an Iranian Lech Walesa perhaps, I think that would really go a long way towards, God willing, regime change and getting rid of this wicked regime. We shall see. Speaking of the Cold War, by the way, the Trump-Bibi partnership, Sid, that we've discussed here, I think of Ronald Reagan, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John Paul II was also involved in that. They worked together, a partnership during the 1980s to ultimately bring down the Soviet Empire. Very interesting. Trump and Bibi, two Churchillian figures, but also similar to that 80s alliance in bringing down the Iranian Empire. So the historic parallels are everywhere. And like you said, Sid, it's God ordained for such a time as this.
I personally believe, and I'm sure you do too, that you just said it with your mouth, this God ordained. President Trump just happens to be president. Netanyahu who will, like Trump, won't back down for anything that is wrong. He won't back off. He will follow what is right. And these two have come together, but I see it even beyond that. We're Americans. We want America to survive. I personally believe if we had had the previous administration in right now, rather than Trump, I wouldn't give 2 cents for America. America's fate is contingent on the two being one, Israel and America. Just like the fate of every viewer right now is contingent on Jesus and them being one. Your entire destiny forever, or our entire destiny right now, is based on Genesis 12:3. Explain that.
Yeah, Genesis 12:3 is a foundational verse for anyone who supports Israel, Sid. God was very clear when he told Abraham, I will bless those who bless you, Israel and the Jewish people, and I will curse those who curse you. And Sid, clearly history bears that out. Let's take a quick walk through history real quick. Take it back to Pharaoh in Egypt. We could talk about the Philistines, the Amalekites, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, Haman, prime minister of the mighty Persian Empire, the Greeks, the Romans, the Ottomans, the Tsars, the Nazis, now Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah. The list goes on and on. Sid, what do all of them have in common? All of them came against Israel and the Jewish people, and all of them wound up in the ash heap of history. God is a promise-keeping God. He has cursed those who have cursed Israel and the Jewish people. Meanwhile, Israel, this tiny sliver of land, continues not only to survive against all odds, but to thrive. And guess what? The United States, Israel's greatest friend, is really the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I don't think it's a coincidence. Sid, I think you're exactly right. Our destiny relies, in the United States, relies very much on how we treat Israel. And I believe God gave us a reprieve as a nation here in America with President Trump's victory. It's amazing. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of the attempted assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13, 2024, of President Trump. And I believe God miraculously spared his life on that day and gave us a reprieve. And we've got a unique window here, Sid, a golden opportunity as the body of Christ and as a nation, and we dare not squander it.
Have you ever noticed, to me, I'm amazed over it, when you spell Jerusalem, in the center of Jerusalem, you have J-E-R-U-S-A, right in the center of Jerusalem, as if to say, USA, you want to survive? You have to be in the center of helping Israel. That's what that says to me. Real quick, what about Gaza? What's going on? What do you expect?
Yeah, to go back to the well, that conversation I had in D.C. last week, Sid, with that senior Israeli official off the record, he said, look, when it comes to Gaza, we will not, meaning Israel, we will not agree to a premature ceasefire that leaves any Hamas elements in power. And this official said, look, in the wake of World War II, would the U.S., the Allies, have left Nazis in power in Germany and let the Nazis still have control in that country? Of course not. Hamas are modern-day Nazis. Why on earth would we allow these terrorist, demonic butchers to maintain control in Gaza? So no, Israel is fully committed to disarming and destroying Hamas so that it can never pose any sort of threat ever again. That's number one. And number two, obviously bringing every hostage home. Sid, there's still about 20 living hostages and the remains of 30 sadly dead hostages that Israel needs to bring home from Gaza. So, look, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, for Israel to agree to a ceasefire and bring an end to the hostilities. But the Israeli government is pretty clear that, okay, we want that too. That's our end goal, of course, but we can't just roll into something that will be, in the long term, disastrous for the state of Israel. So Gaza might continue for a little while longer, for sure, although there are rumblings, Sid, in recent days of a potential ceasefire where maybe 10 of those hostages will gradually be released. It just seems to be dragging on, for sure.
If I was Bibi,
the Prime Minister's committed.
He's committed. But if I was Bibi, I would say, we're going to do, well, it'd be easy for me to say this, but he has got to get those hostages home. I mean, otherwise he'll get them home dead. That's why he's got to do it right away. You said something that excited me no end. The average citizen of Iran is so different than their leadership. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an overthrow of the government very soon, because the sentiment is rising. And I happen to believe, just as there is a move of God, the fastest move of God on Iranian citizens, we're about ready to see one of the fastest moves of God. Many people don't see it and don't talk about it. I see it. I believe it. We're about ready to see that scripture in Romans 11, all Israel shall be saved. Can you picture when Iranian young people and Jewish people are one in the Messiah, what's going to happen to all this junk? That's going to be the release of the greatest power in the history of heaven come into earth, called The Greater Glory of God. And I wrote a book that literally millions have been distributed. It came from a dream. And in this dream, God told me more Jewish people would come to him through this book. But what's going on right now is way beyond even what I felt God told me about it. What he told me to do is to get a book in the dream, get a book of Jewish testimony. It's so simple. I'd never have done that, really. So I immediately did it. I called 10 of my friends, Jewish believers in the Messiah, a Holocaust survivor, a New Age guru, a concert pianist. I mean, it is just the most amazing book. And each one had a path in which they became a believer in the Messiah. I believe any Jewish person that reads this book, and by the way, I have good news for you. We have a free digital download. If you just go to sidroth.org/9963, you'll get your free digital download of the ebook. Now, I am positive of two things. Number one, if you give it to the Jewish person that God himself has crossed your path, we are open. You don't know we're open because all you're doing is what's called friendship evangelism. And if a Jewish person dies and you have a great friendship with your Jewish friend, it's not going to help them one iota. You want to be, you have a good Jewish friend? Share the good news with them. First, you read this yourself. because it'll give you faith for sharing the good news with your Jewish friend. It'll give you information on how to share the good news with your Jewish friend. And if you're unfortunate, like most Christians, you're not even sharing with non-Jews. But I'm telling you, the simple thing you can do is send this download to your Jewish friend. Eric, could you see what would happen if 100,000 Jewish people read a book like this, and it's the set time to favor Zion, and the Holy Spirit comes on them, and we get together with these Iranians that are on fire for Jesus? I don't think this world is hopeless, Eric.
No, Sid, it's not. And you use that number 100,000. I think of those 144,000 Jewish witnesses that the book of Revelation talks about, number one. And number two, we talk about Israel and Iran together. Sid, the Iranian people, large, vast quantities, do not care about the Palestinian issue in terms of that's the overwhelming focus of their government. And they don't have hostility towards Israel. They respect, they admire Israel, and at the end of the day, they'd like to see Israel take out that regime. So absolutely, the seeds are being laid here. And remember, before this regime came to power in 1979 in Iran, Israel and Iran were friends. They had a great relationship, and by the way, Iran and the U.S. were as well. And Sid, take it back to biblical times. King Cyrus in Persia, he released the Jewish people from captivity, said, go back to Jerusalem, rebuild the temple. So, Sid, you make a great point. There's a long history between Israel and the people of Iran, and I believe God has brought these people together in the past, and I believe there will be a glorious future there as well. And also, not talking Iran, but Isaiah 19, Sid, that highway in the Messianic age running down from Assyria through Israel into Egypt, and all of these nations will be united under the Lord your God. Amazing things are happening. Amazing days are on the way. We live in Bible times.
You know, just like the computer has revolutionized the world so quickly, you can't even operate without a computer on your phone or your iPad. I mean, that happening so quickly. I believe what we're talking about can be quicker than you think, sooner than you think. Eric, thank you so much for being my guest. And those viewers that are watching, to whom much is given, much is required. It's time to go to your Jewish friend and say, I love you so much. I want you to get this free download, and I'm sending it to you. That's not a lot of effort on your part. But you know what? It'll change their destiny forever. Their destiny, you may be the only person that will ever give them a witness. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Jew and Muslim, one in the Messiah. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. In Yeshua's name, amen.